Hey, Sleepy Reader here, aka Damien. I'm back again. The never-ending comic book haul, part 5. Um, this time there's going to be some underground comics, so it may or may not be safe for with little kids around. I don't know for sure what I'll find when I open these up, and or at work perhaps. So I put this beer in the freezer. So I wanted it to get cold quickly. And that worked. That's good. So I thought I'd show you a few paperback books and things that I grabbed just like the day school shut down, I guess back now in March. My daughter and I ran out to some bookstores, which was a good thing because the bookstores shut down a day or two after that. One thing I got was some books by Eric Brown, I know he's a British writer, and he hasn't started getting published much in the United States until Solaris, a British company, started up publishing in the United States. But his books are still kind of hard for me to locate, so when I find a bunch of them, I grab them. And Helix, in fact, was one I owned before and then lost before I finished it. Now I've started reading it again from the beginning because I know there's stuff I forgot, but it's also a bit of a slog because a lot of it I do remember as I get to it. But anyway, I want to read the whole thing. It's about an alien world. You can see some loops here. That's a looping helix. You know, kind of like Ringworld was one giant ring around the sun. This one's a looping helix. So the worlds or the countries on the ends of the helix are going to be cold, and the ones near the middle where the sun is are going to be very warm. And so there's all these alien cultures scattered throughout the helix, and a slightly future Earth ship, generation ship I believe, crash lands on it. And interesting thing about Eric Brown is even though he writes about very pulpy kind of subjects like that, kind of space opera or whatever, he always writes in a very deliberate, calm, plain style. Like, he doesn't try to be flashy at all. His prose is just very matter of fact, and it's an interesting combination that I've come to be a bit addicted to. So I got this other book of his called The Guardians of the Phoenix. That Helix book has at least one sequel, which I think I own already and started reading, but then wished I could get back and read the original. But I think they're all standalones, and I'm not sure if this Guardians of the Phoenix is connected to anything. It takes place on Earth. It looks, the seas have dried up, deserts cover much of Earth's surface, and humanity has been all but annihilated, as much by the drought as by the nuclear and biological conflicts following the Great Breakdown. So it sounds like post-apocalypse global warming style. And right now we're having a heat wave here in Portland, heading up into the high 90s. I can remember when a heat wave here would be when we hit 90 at all, but things are changing. And then another book of his, odd title, Janie and the Great Pursuit. Brown's novel is serious fun, a modern SF spin on Rudyard Kipling and H. Rider Haggard. More into the H. Rider Haggard than the Rudyard Kipling. With a resourceful heroine, enough daring do to keep the pages turning, and some sincere points about imperialism. So another person says it's a worthy successor to the Victorian yarns of Jules Verne and H.G. Wells. A fast-paced romp through territory steampunks typically do not navigate. Steampunk novels. So we'll see. I guess it must be some kind of alternate history, steampunk type of thing. So that was cool. And then at the used bookstore, I found this book, Conquest of Earth by Manly Bannister, which surely is a pen name, Manly Bannister. I'm not sure. I have to look into that. But this is a book that I remember having as a kid and loving, but I've read a little bit of it so far. I'm on page 16, and I'm not loving it so far. It seems really tedious to read, only 16 pages in. Of course, the print is very small. It's crazy, though. I keep telling my daughter, who feels bad for, she's only on book 12 of the Wings of Fire books, each of which are 450 pages long. The books I read when I was a kid were about 120 pages long. The size of paperbacks has, or fun novels for kids and teens and adults, has changed quite a bit. And here's kind of a cool find. Going back all the way to September 1948, Astounding Science Fiction, which includes the Players of A, which I think later would be titled the Players of Null A, if I got it right. Or maybe that is Null A, that sign over the A, maybe null. But a sort of famous yet obscure novel by A.E. Van Vogt. Let's see who else is in here. Other writers in here are not immediately familiar. J.A. Winter, M.D., has a novelette. I feel like I got a piece of grass in my throat. My very minor asthma is that it makes me oversensitive to anything that comes in my throat. That cough, urge to cough becomes stronger. In Hiding by William Shiras. In the short story section, we do have a Theodore Sturgeon story, The Love of Heaven. Something called Period Piece by J.J. Coupling. That sounds like a student name also. Articles by Willie Lay and E.L. Locke. And then the serial, The Players of Null A, by A.E. Van Vogt, part 2 of 4 parts. And I believe these were illustrated back then. Not maybe. And I thought what was most interesting, what stands out to me is how big the word science fiction is and how little the word astounding is. I think that the famous editor, John Campbell of Astounding Science Fiction, wanted to get rid of the astounding and just call it science fiction. I think there was another magazine called Science Fiction. Maybe that didn't start till the 50s. So eventually he got them to change it to Analog, but it's most famous during its astounding days. This seems in very good shape for a pulp from 1948 to me. But I suppose there's even better. But this does not cost me a lot of money. I don't know what, but small enough amount so I didn't even bat an eyelash when I picked it up. Interesting note on John W. Campbell is there's a famous award for Best New Science Fiction Writer of the Year called the John W. Campbell Award, and they recently changed the name because Campbell is infamously kind of a racist guy, both against Jews and blacks and perhaps other things. Mostly, maybe in some of his editorials, I'm not sure about that. Definitely in person, people report he was that way. So they decided to no longer name the award after him, which I have very mixed feelings about because he's still essential to the shape of American science fiction. Anyway, that's a whole nother thing. Astounding Science Fiction from 1951, cool cover. Temple Trouble by H. Beam Piper, a once popular writer. I don't think anyone knows anything about him now. It's funny, is this like a disguise hovering in the air for this guy to put on? I'm not sure what's going on in this picture. Authors in here include H. Beam Piper, Sylvia Jacobs, don't remember her, Jack Williamson, definitely a big star, Frederick Brown, also a big name to me, Oliver Sari has a story called Dog. I had a story called Dog once. Prodigal's Aura by Raymond Z. Gallen. I remember that name. I associate very pulpy stuff with him, but maybe not. And then a bunch of other nonfiction stuff. I'm just indulging myself. I don't know if anyone out there cares what's in the contents of Astounding Science Fiction from 1951. And then I also picked up, I don't know, was it $5? Is this sticker what I paid? For $5 perhaps, Galaxy Science Fiction from 1951 also. And at some point in the 50s, Galaxy became the true center of the science fiction field, I believe. Galaxy, or Galaxy and Fantasy and Science Fiction, taking over from Astounding, who was the king in the 40s. Not that Astounding stopped being somewhat important. No authors mentioned on the cover here. But this is like, other than that stupid sticker there, this is completely, feels almost brand new. Venus is a Man's World by William Tenn. Appointment in Tomorrow by Fritz Leiber. So those are both big names to me. Common Denominator by John D. MacDonald, who wrote science fiction at one point. Syndrome Johnny by Charles Dye. Pen Pal by Martin Lesser. Book-length serial Conclusion, Mars Child by Cyril Judd. I assume that's covers for Mars Child. I don't know the name Cyril Judd, but that also sounds like one of those infamous pen names that people used back then. When they were publishing too much stuff at once, they would pick up pen names. This does have just little bits of illustration, I guess. Eventually, like the current ones that still exist, like Fantasy and Science Fiction and Asimov's Magazine and Analog, they have no illustrations, which is very sad to me. Kind of wish they had more than they did back in the day, not less. Let's see. So, and this was remaindered, this William Gibson novel. It must be a few William Gibson novels back. Or no, I got a used copy, not remaindered. William Gibson's Zero History. I have a feeling this is part of some loose trilogy of his, because he does loose trilogies, but I assume I can read it on its own. I like that title, Zero History, but I don't know anything about the book. And then I think I paid quite a bit of this, and they had another. This used to be, when I used to watch a lot of film, Luis Bunwell, the Spanish filmmaker who did filmmaking in France, Spain, and Mexico, was my favorite director. But I haven't watched any of his movies in a really long time. And this is a critical biography, but there's also an autobiography by him, but the used bookstore was charging a ton of money for that, so I need to look elsewhere. I think what are his most famous books? Well, most famous movies. There's Shan Andalou and The Discreet Charm of the Petty Bourgeoisie, Lodge Door. But there's another one that I always think of that I don't see them mentioning here. Anyway, he had tons of great movies. I should go back and watch them all again, because I mostly watched them back in college when I was a member of the film club, before anyone had video recorders, VCRs. And every Monday night I would go to the film club and see some other unexpected foreign film that I knew nothing about and had no pre-expectations. So that was always fascinating to me. And over time, every time there was a Bunwell movie, I would love it. I mean, Truffaut was good and all that. It was all the cliches of who people thought were the great European art movie people by the end of the 60s and 70s, because I was in college around 1980. So yeah, let's get to some comics. I've said before that with all the credit I have at my shop, I've been more free at just grabbing up used comics. Usually my store has all their newest priced back issues in a short box on the counter. So I just go there every week and flip through it when I'm picking up my regular comics. And one week, half the box was underground comics. And now in retrospect, I wish I'd grabbed more. At the time, I kind of was holding myself back for a few ones that weren't too expensive and piqued my interest. So I got Slow Death number 4. Nope, these are out of order. Oh well, there's going to be backwards. I think I had this one when I was in college. I think one of the undergrounds I found at a head shop. Is there a Richard Corbin story in here? Oh, there's this Jackson story that I remember about a guy shipwrecked on a planet who's having sex with the ugly, grotesque aliens or mutants. It was a disturbing story. They do not. This, as I said, this is not for work or family. They do not stint on the details there. At least he's using a condom. And his penis seems to be fairly normal sized. Let's see. Here is a Richard Corbin. Was Richard Corbin involved in the publishing of Slow Death? It's from Last Gasp Eco Funnies, Berkeley, California. I don't know. So we got Jackson, we've got Irons. I'm not sure which artist that is. There. That Corbin artwork impressed me so much back then because no one else had that kind of look. It doesn't wow me quite as much now because he... Oh, and here's the Corbin thing making fun of Magnus Robot Fighter, which you may have seen me showing my volumes of Magnus Robot Fighter back in a previous video. So, yeah. Oh, it looks kind of like Magnus is fighting a naked Den. But I'm sure he's not Den. He's probably but this guy's called Mangle Robot Fighter. First of a new species that will replace man. So, and then we get a lot of ultraviolence. Again, being naughty, there's that. There's that. Oh well. So, kind of a sick, grim sense of humor in this issue, just as I remember it. I did have that one. I don't think I had this one, number 3, another Corbin cover. A quick look inside. That looks like Jackson art, Gene Shuffle. The Harbinger by Jim Osborne. There is some... You know what? This one looks familiar. I wonder if this was reprinted somewhere else in some other magazine, because this Corbin looks familiar. I think if it wasn't too explicit, or maybe they would kind of fix these things up and sometimes publish them in more overground kind of comics. It was in the black and white. I don't know. Or maybe I'm misremembering. So that's cool. So these all cost me, well, their sticker price was $5, and I have a 25% discount at the shop. So I guess that makes them, what, about $4 a piece. And this is Slow Death number 2, sorry. Not a Corbin cover, it's a Jackson cover. I'm not sure. And there's the back cover, which I guess is part of the front cover. Good old wraparound. Not reach around, wrap around. And of course, I'm constantly thinking about the influence of EC when I read these underground comics, and especially the influence of Wally Wood, it seems like. Although I'm sure Harvey Kurtzman had a huge influence, the Mad magazine, early Mad magazine. But in different ways, both these stories here, can't see who they're by, remind me of Wally Wood. Okay, this has got a lot of aliens. This is by Sheridan, huh? What was Sheridan's first name? And was he in some way involved with the Furry Freak Brothers? I feel like he was. Then I got this one. I don't know what it's about. American Flyer Funnies. I gotta be sure to keep these away from my daughter. I'm gonna have to hide them as soon as I'm done. This one actually says on the cover, mean cunts. I don't know there's all these comics and books all over the stores now that have the word fuck in the title. I don't know if you could have the word cunts in the title here in the U.S. Holy Five. It says it's copyright by Larry Welts, Larry Sutherland, and Larry Todd, so I suppose those are the artist-writers on these various stories. Larry Todd sounds familiar, the others don't. That might be Larry Sutherland. Oh, Larry's? Yeah, see, like that really evokes some Wallywood memories in me. And then I found, I didn't know these existed, but they appealed to me just because of my love of Conan and Sword and Sorcery, these Barbarian Comics. And I got issue 2 and 3, and then something called Barbarian Killer Funnies. I almost wonder if these were a purposeful cash-in on the kind of obsession of the inner fan circles on Barry Smith's Conan. Stories and art. Inside covers by Richard Corbin. A little bit, maybe, on the Barry Smith-ishness. And maybe it just seemed fun to do stories about barbarians where you could be more bloody than you could in Marvel Comics and show more of the TNA. Although they pretty much showed everything, and you just skipped a few tiny bits in those Barbarian Marvel Comics. I'll have to someday read these and report back to you. Interesting artwork. But I had no idea these existed. Here's number 3. I can't really read the signature on the cover. That cover. I don't know why that picture makes me laugh. But maybe a little more realistic. I don't know. Also disturbing. This is art by someone named John Williams, I think it said. Looks Frazetta influenced, if anything. It also kind of looks like Val Myrick artwork, which makes me realize, was Val Myrick Frazetta influenced? If that's how you pronounce his name. There's some other stories that are not actually Sword and Sorcery, but maybe fit the violent vibe of these kinds of comics. So, if you don't have enough Conan in your life and you want something more graphic, hunt down these Barbarian Comics. And then I've already peeked at Barbarian Killer Funnies, which I thought with a title like that might be a bunch of, single gag pages or short gag things, but I think it's all one continuous story about a character that will probably started in the previous issue and is continued on. Quar of the Warthog is the name of this issue's story, whatever that means. Quar makes me think of Guar. But the barbarian is named Crunch, with no vowels in it, but I guess Crunch the Barbarian. God from the Bowl, and there's a God in the Bowl story by Robert E. Howard. So this looks like kind of almost like an R-rated Mad Magazine, or maybe R-rated Mad Magazine version of Conan, perhaps. We'll see. And then maybe in kind of the same vein, so maybe the reason these were cheaper is because most people, when they think of underground comics, want stuff like like Robert Crumb, not like these kind of pastiches. But Amazon Comics by Fulbert Sturgeon. I think that was a pen name for someone else. Maybe the guy who did. Although the art style doesn't look at all like it, but maybe the guy. I feel like that was a pen name for the guy who does the Furry Freak Brothers. That was his name. Let's see. I guess it's not all one story, but a lot of it's drawn in that style. And then there's a shorter pieces or piece in the back. And now an academic discussion. Anyway, interesting. I've got so many comics. I want to get to reading them all, but that's not practical. I have a pile of newer comics that my plan is to work on reading for a good part of the rest of today. Finally, I grabbed this Joe R. Lansdale Dead in the West, #1, and I think it's just a 2-issue comic. And I saw a bunch of this artwork for sale just now on Heritage Auctions. And they didn't have any takers, really, or very few, so that the prices were like $13 and stuff like that. And I bid on 1 or 2 of the pages, but they weren't the best pages. So maybe more will come on the market. This is Jack Jackson artwork, so Joe R. Lansdale and Jack Jackson together, who went by the name Jackson with an X in the earlier days. And I read some Jackson back in the 80s when he was doing Western historical kind of comics. I want to find those again, find more by him. He's an interesting style. It's very, it's very good at evoking some other time. I'm surprised that he was working at Dark Horse for a while. And I think I was told on a live stream that I was on that he had committed suicide after getting sick. So that's sad. But, the cover is by Timothy Truman. I was just going to say, boy, this Jack Jackson did a good job on this cover. An interesting back cover. So that's it for another haul. There'll be at least one more to come. So, in this series. So I will talk to you all again soon. Bye-bye.